This is Jeremy again with the New Testament experience, offering some background to what you're reading this week. We're going to be looking specifically at Matthew chapter 18, verses 15 through 20. And what we're looking at here is a very interesting, very practical scripture. It's something that I use oftentimes when I'm talking to people about conflict, because it says this is the place where Jesus says, look, first, would you please just go to the person, right? Um, and then if that doesn't work out, bring somebody, and if not, bring them in front of all the believers. But there's a couple of other interesting things going around here with kind of the Jewish side of things, and so what I think we're going to do is think about these two Jewish ideas that we see in the scripture, and then look at how they fold themselves into it. And the first idea that will help us understand what's going on here is the idea of binding and loosing. Binding and loosing are actually kind of technical terms for rabbis. People would come to rabbis and they would ask them, they would say, hey, the law says that we're only supposed to, or that we're not supposed to work on the Sabbath. Well, is carrying a loaf of bread from my counter to my table, is that work? Can I do that on the Sabbath? And so the rabbi, with the proper credential, would be able to make that call for him, and they would say, okay, here's what you're gonna need to do. You can. You can take the bread to the table, but you can't make the bread. And so when they said that the law applied to something, they would say that practice was bound to the law. And so it would be kind of forbidden to happen. Now, if he said, no, I mean, really, it's not a big deal. Just carry the bread, from your counter to your table. It's not a big deal. The rabbi would be said to be loosing that practice, and so saying that it was okay for you to carry the bread. Now, it's important to note that rabbis were the only people that could do this. The rabbis, the priests were the only one. You had to have the proper credentials to be able to make these kind of binding and loosing decisions. So that's the first thing for us to understand is binding and loosing. The second idea for us to understand is from a really cool passage in Exodus chapter 20-24, where God says, wherever I cause my name to be remembered, I will come to you and bless you. Wherever I cause my name to be remembered, I will come to you and bless you. And this tradition developed out of that, this rabbinical tradition, saying that when you study the Torah, that God is present there because you are reading the words of God. And so as you study them, it is God being present with you. And so that's an important thing for us to understand, is this idea that there was this tradition of God being present with people when they were studying the Torah. So let's go back here into Matthew. What happens in this passage is Jesus. We see basically a transfer of authority. Jesus has authority. He is a legit rabbi. We talked about that in last week's note on this. He is a legitimate rabbi, and so he has the authority to make these calls. And he is a rabbi with this particular thing we call authority. And so because of that, he can bind and loose. But now what he's doing is he is turning over that binding and loosing authority to the disciples. But he's doing it on one condition, right? He says, whatever is bound on earth is bound in heaven, whatever is loosed on earth is loosed in heaven. And then he goes into this part about wherever two or three are gathered, there I am in the midst of them. And what he's saying is, you have my authority because when you gather together, when you're in community, I am present. And that is an important thing, because what Jesus is doing is he's setting up Christian community as the kind of central mediating body of what is right and what is wrong, and for us that's huge, because ever since the printing press we've been able to take the Bible and go and read it for ourselves, and community, the community of faith, the community of believers have become less and less a part of our personal Bible study, when in fact Jesus is saying, look, if you really want to know, you need to be looking at what I'm saying in a community. And that's why small groups are important, discussion groups, drawing your family, pulling your family together, and talking to them about the scriptures, because what happens is, if it's just me and the Bible, I can go way off on a tangent all by myself, and but when I bring that idea to a community, there can be people in there that can hold me accountable and say, no, that's Jeremy, that's actually crazy, that does not make any sense. No. And so Jesus is giving them this authority to interpret the scriptures for daily use in a community, which is huge, huge. But another thing that he's doing, and the first century people would have probably caught on to this, is when he's saying, when you guys come together, I'm there in the midst of you. This is this idea of from Exodus 20:24 of, wherever I cause my name to be remembered, I will come to you and bless you. And this is kind of a dramatic statement. If you see the parallel, what Jesus is saying is his words, his life, his teachings are Scripture. They are Torah, which in that world is huge. Yeah, depending on who you talk to at the time, it could have been tantamount to blasphemy. And so what Jesus is doing is he's saying, okay, look, just as when you read the Torah, God is present. When you come together in my name, in my spirit, seeking after me as a community of believers, I am there in the midst of you. It's the same God operating in the same way in a new era. Hope this helped. Stay tuned here for some more background next week. And I look forward to seeing you guys around and discussing these things with you. You can hit me up on Facebook. You can find me, Jeremy Steele, on Facebook. And all right.